You furry, flea-bitten fool, I'll cover my throne with your hide.
Hi, everybody. I'm hoping everybody has having a good weekend so far. Um, I was talking with my new friend on the phone, Julian, and part of our discussion reminded me of something that I was witness to as a JW back in the early '80s. Um, at the time, I wanted to share this with you because I think it's kind of interesting, and maybe you guys will too. Um, let's see, in the late, I guess, '79, maybe early 1980, Fidel Castro, the communist dictator in Cuba, pretty much flushed his toilet, and on the shores of America, all of the undesirables in the communist uh, nation of Cuba were cast onto our shores. And, the rapists, the murderers, the political criminals, all of the bad element, including Jehovah's Witnesses. They were not desired in communist Cuba, and so they were expelled. And there was a group, probably a couple of hundred, maybe more, ended up where I was living in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And, I ran into, they were lovely people, you know. I got along with most of them. And I thought it was interesting that a lot of them smoked cigars and cigarettes. And I made friends with an elderly gentleman. He was in his late 60s, early 70s. And he used to tell me that he used to love to smoke his cigars and drink whiskey from Kentucky, he would call it, Kentucky Sour Mash or whatever. And but he would call it Kentucky. And he eventually died from lung disease, and he, I guess, smoked cigars most of his adult life. And him and a lot of the other brothers that came over didn't realize, because of the cutoff from the Watchtower Society, that there had been a ban put on smoking of any kind of tobacco by the Watchtower. And so here come these brothers. Most of them were still elders in the prisons and things like that. And they were all smoking cigars, so I thought that was kind of funny. But something else that came over with them was a very unusual practice. There was just a beautiful African-Cuban sister that was right about my age at the time. I guess I was around 18 or 19. And I almost didn't get baptized on account of what went on in this person's house. This young lady, she had perfect skin, and her face was lovely, her hair was lovely, and her smile was, just unbelievable. And we got to be friends at the hall, and she invited us, a bunch of the other young people, me included, to her house for a genuine Cuban home-cooked meal. And so, yeah, that sounds great. We went over, and her mom was also this lovely, robust woman. And she was cooking, and I noticed that she deliberately went and cut her finger and bled a little bit of the blood from her finger on top of a rock that was in a little, almost like an aquarium type of thing. It was like in a glass kind of enclosure. And I watched, and the blood just went straight into the rock. It's like it absorbed it. And I thought, well, that must be, a piece of pumice or something. But when I looked closer, it was a very shiny, obsidian-like rock. And it just drank up the blood. And I thought, well, what's that? And I asked Orchid, well, what's this about? And she said, oh, my mom's asking for blessing over the meal. She's appeasing the house spirit. And I go, the house spirit? What are you talking about? And so she told me a little bit of this mysticism type of thing, you know. And having understood that the witnesses in Cuba didn't understand a lot of things that we understood at the current time because the Watchtower had changed policy on smoking. I remember when my folks were first coming to truth, like in the late 60s, they'd have the public talk on Sunday morning, and then they had about a 15-minute intermission between that and the Watchtower, and most people would go outside and have a cigarette and then go back in for the Watchtower study. So when the ban came on smoking, I think they gave everybody 6 months to quit, or there'd be judicial action after that point. And so being in Cuba in the lockdown, they didn't get any of that information. So I understood some of them would probably still be smoking and drinking, stuff like that. But I said, I don't know if you realize, this is actually a form of spiritism, And then she was like, no, apparently there's a big difference, according to her. There was a big difference between the white Cubans and the black Cubans. A lot of the black Cubans, she said, retained a lot of the Babalu religion, a lot of the voodoo-ish type of things. Even though they were Jehovah's Witnesses, they still carried their house spirit with them in this rock, and it was a kind of a traditional family thing that they did. The rock had been passed down to her mom, and she was expecting it to be passed down to her. And the idea is that you bleed X number of times a month. I can't remember how many times a month, but several times a month. You cut yourself and you bleed onto this rock to keep the house spirit happy, or whatever it was. Well, I thought that was really weird, and I wasn't the type, I wasn't even really baptized at the time. I was just kind of put off by it because I've had some dealings with supernatural and occult things in my own house, having been a witness, and then having been kind of living with / shacked up with / not really living there, but living there type situation with a young witch. And so I recognized it for what it was, and I talked to her, and I told her, I said, you guys could probably be in trouble if the elders caught wind of this. I wasn't going to go whine to the elders about it. It's not my business, but I just told her, I said, I wouldn't do this in front of an elder if this is what you guys are doing, but this is, this is definitely something the society frowns on. And I don't know, I didn't go back to that house after that, and I didn't tell anybody that I knew about it, except like my brother and my sister, but they weren't going to go tell anybody either, But yeah, I thought that was interesting. I was wondering if anybody out there knows about if they still carry on this practice, even this 30 years later, 30 some years later. I think that it is hypocritical of the Watchtower to come down on things that are considered to be occult like that, and yet their own history and a lot of their behind-the-scenes stuff is steeped in occultism and Luciferian type activity. Anyway, I thought I would share that with everybody, and hope you all continue to have a good weekend. You guys take care, and I'll hope to talk with you again soon. Bye-bye.